Good evening, great debate league. Thank you so much for joining us for the post-debate analysis for GDL 18. Spirituality is a form of escapism for many African Americans. Trey Scott arguing the affirmative, Katina Taylor arguing the negative. I was tonight's moderator. I am also a GDL commissioner, again, Ebony Johnson. Alongside who was running tech for us tonight, GDL Commissioner Dr. Bruce Strobel. Professor AJ Lowe, who was with y'all in the chat with audience Q&A, and keeping time, Dr. Mutor Flood. Talani Deskins was one of our judges, and he's joining us on screen tonight. So let's start with opening statements.
Woo. Who wants to go first?
I mean, I had about equal in the opening statement. I didn't see much difference, in what they were trying to communicate, their overall argument.
Okay. One thing I will say for Trey, I wasn't sure what he was necessarily going to say in his opening statement, but I was surprised that he had, Pew statistics and, just a bulk of research to describe how African Americans make up that percentage of spirituality and religion. And, he used a lot of data and information to cross-reference and lay a foundation for how much we utilize spirituality as a people. So that part actually surprised me that he had more factual data than I was necessarily anticipating.
I thought that Trey was really good in the opening statement. I thought this was probably his strongest round. He came out, he delivered the context of his argument. His elocution was perfect. I mean, from start to finish, I understood every word. I was with him for every step of his argument. And where he was better than Katina read her opening statement. And I think as the league is growing, we're seeing this is becoming a challenge for some of our best debaters, is when you're reading, you lose some of that energetic value. So she would pull off her script at certain times, but Trey didn't go from his script. If he did, we couldn't tell. So I thought that gave him the slight edge there, being that other than that, their arguments were equal.
I think Trey was reading. I think he had a better camera position. Fair enough. Katina's eyes were looking down, but I believe Trey was reading. I just think the way he was positioned was a little better.
But you know what? In hearing what y'all said, what y'all are saying about the opening statements, I would have to then give it to Trey because he brought stats. So I changed my position. He actually won that. Yeah.
I agree. I think. Well, I'll say that I would give the opening debate or the opening statement equal. I'd say they were both equal. I'd say that they came into that. Both of them came into it strong. Yeah. Later is where you see the separation.
Okay, Mr. Deskins, what do you think as a judge?
I mean, Trey killed. His camera positioning was perfect. His speech, like he looked like he was looking into the camera. That was a definite plus for him. But in his opening statement started really strong, with a lot of facts and a lot of different things. But then I thought he was trying to make this wraparound point with Christianity. And I think he just ran out of time before he could make it flow back. And so
very good point.
It was the start of a trend that we saw more times down the line with Trey, where he seemed like he was trying to make a long wraparound point, but it just extended too long, and it started to lose whatever he was trying to say. And so that was a little bit, that kind of surprised me because it started really strong. I was like, okay, cool. He's going to hit a lot of points. And then when he hit that second half of it, it kind of trailed off to where I was like, I'm not persuaded because I don't really know what you're talking about.
Excellent point.
So that was a little piece for me.
One thing I note from the opening statement is I felt Trey, and I told y'all before the debate, Trey is a master strategist. He tried to elude himself from the definitions and parameters that were set. He went right into, after we just said the parameters take Christianity out of the scope, he goes right in and ties Christianity back in, because that was important to his argument to say most Black people are practicing religion. And Katina let him get away with that for some point.
But but in his defense, I don't think, if we're talking about the African American community, I don't think we could reliably separate spirituality from Christianity in contemporary America. It's just not going to happen.
He agreed to that parameter, though. He agreed to it.
Yeah, but even if you agree to it, you're still going. The overlap is such that spirituality is practiced in the church. Most African Americans are in the church.
Bruh, he agreed to the terms, though.
Right. But I'm just saying.
But no, there's no.
I get what you're saying. I got you.
That's like saying, did you read the contract?
It's like saying it's water wet. It's like, yeah. Black people in America are Christians, and they're spiritual. Like,
no, you're missing the point, bro.
You're saying the airplane's flying.
But I guess you're saying Christianity is synonymous with spirituality, and I think he made that argument as well, and Katina was pushing back on that.
The overlap is so significant that we're talking about semantics a lot of the time.
No, we're not.
So that's something that
in the agreement, we actually posted this on the bottom of the screen where it says that these two are not synonymous. For this debate, that this is not synonymous. He agreed to that.
That was actually a parameter that Katina wanted to set. I remember in the debate negotiations, and she explicitly said that, and Trey agreed to it.
He did.
Well, fair enough. He agreed to it. I'm just saying, if he did, then that wasn't a good idea because I wouldn't agree to it. But
even when he made that comment about the amount of people that were Christian, even if he wanted to end around and saying like all of these people are involved in a religion that engages spirituality, that still was not clear to what that has to do with escapism in the opening statement. Like there was no clear connection. Like, okay, yes, a lot of people are Christian. Okay. So I just thought that was the part that didn't wrap around. Like, I don't, if the angle was to try to bring Christianity into it, great, but I just think he ran out of time or it just got too disjointed. So that was my opinion as a judge.
Okay, I feel you.
All right, so let's move to the lightning round then. What did y'all think of the lightning round?
From memory, I felt that Katina showed up stronger in the lightning round. There was a point where I felt Trey gave her too much time and space and room. I think that sometimes with some gentlemen, there could be a balance of wanting to come across a certain way when you're debating a woman. Mm-hmm. And I can understand that. However, you are in a debate, brother. And whether she's a sister or not, you're not name calling or doing anything like that, but to get in there. And then he kind of brought it back.
Yeah.
He brought it back around, but there was a period where I felt he gave her a little bit too much time.
He let her talk for maybe 5 or 6 minutes straight in a 20-minute round, which I thought was extensive. I say this, right? The lightning round is a unique segment for the GDL's debate structure because we allow it to be open. And in most groups and other debate formats, they are going to structure it a little differently than us. So because it's open and it has that simultaneous cross-examination, you have to use that time. And Trey gave up some valuable time in there, which respectfully he did. And I think he came out okay in the lightning round. I just think Katina, she got a couple of times where she got to go on long rants explaining her point, and Trey refused to interject.
So here's where I'm going to disagree with nearly all of y'all. I think Trey indisputably won the lightning round. And here's why. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at the terms that are agreed to for escapism and for spirituality, what he was doing was he was broadening what escapism means to not only mean a negative, but also a positive. What Miss Katina was arguing was the negative of escapism and that Black people don't fit into this category. And so if we look at just the definition of what they agreed to, then that would put Trey at an advantage. Mm-hmm. All right, because let me read it. Let me read it because it's very important. So a mental diversion from unpleasant or boring aspects of life. When he explained it, he's like, hey, you could just be going through a bad day and then you go to pray, and that would be a form of escapism. All right,
but that's not a winning argument to me.
That amount of time. what Katina was going at, hey, what we normally and conventionally think of as escapism, as a sort of a defense mechanism, that's a negative for Black people. That's how we normally utilize the words when we're applying it to Black folks. So if that is the case, based off the definition and what he was going for the larger explanation of escapism, he would be technically correct. And so he could give all the time to Katina because all she's doing is helping his argument and explaining how escapism is negative. We saying, yeah, it's all that too. And it's positive. Benito.
I hear you, but I think once again, by using the definition, it could go either way because it's saying that you're diversion. That's the key word, right? That you're trying to divert. And she's arguing that Black people are using their spiritual practices to address the issues. That's not a diversion. So I think she was presenting that evidence, and he tried to circumvent that by saying, well, it could be positive, but he wasn't showing how they were using it to avoid the realities of life. He said that they do, but when asked for specific examples, he would just say, yeah, Black people made it this far. Black people accomplished this. It was part of our history. But he didn't say when Black people were being lynched, they just started praying and didn't confront the lynch mob. I didn't see that happen anywhere in the debate where
I don't think that was his argument. But go ahead, Tanani.
No, I was gonna say I sort of understand what you're saying, but I think the problem was he allowed her to start it off with a question and answer where he asked questions and let her frame her argument exactly how she wanted to. And he didn't really provide a rebuttal to that argument. He started to argue about specific parts of her argument
because he agreed with it. Ultimately,
so
he agreed with because it's 50% of his argument.
But if she's presenting the argument and saying it's not escapism, when she did actually make his argument in some of her responses, but he didn't hone in on that until really the very end. Like his last comment was spirituality, was honing in on the spirituality as a tool comment. But that was like the last thing he said. For like 90% of it, he just let her talk and make her points, and then like was arguing over the semantics of whether escapism was always bad or was it a good thing. And in real time, it just seemed like,
I'm not sure if that would be semantics, because escapism can be used as a coping skill, but if it's left and done in a deleterious way, then it would start to become a negative. And so coping skills could be positive, and it could help you to carry on the struggle. So as well as negative, which can thwart you from facing racism, white supremacy. And
so here's where that leaves our judges, and I think this is interesting, right? Is temporarily coping with the issue, is that escapism? Did Trey make that point that if something's happening and you choose to deal with it through your spiritual practices, does that qualify as escapism if you're still dealing with the issue?
Yeah, I think what you just said would be a compelling argument. That is not what he said, though. What he did is let her talk 90% of the time and really didn't make those connections. And so we can't fill in the gaps for him. I was watching it like, ooh, sir, there's a lot of things you could say right here. Like you could strike on the fact that she even said that escapism is part of it. Like escapism is the beginning and it leads to you having like a spiritual journey. Like she made your argument for you, and I just didn't see him taking that position. But the other judges are here. Obviously,
yeah, we have all three judges with us tonight. Mrs. Shaw, what did you think about that lightning round, particularly around this issue of escapism and how it was being used?
My response is twofold. So part of it isn't so much the escapism component, but I think you guys were talking a minute ago around it looked like she was just talking on and on and on. The way I came into this is I judged it purely based off of the technicality of what it means to debate. He made his argument early on with a lot of statistics. I will say, though, that she really didn't have as many statistics to her disposal because there's a whole lot of statistics that are organized by credible organizations that have backing that could be used in something like this to execute her points well. And so I think he came out with all of these statistics, and in that round What I saw him do was just ask her questions, get her talking, and get all of her argument out up front so that he can probably turn around and use it against her later on in the debate. I saw it as a strategy as opposed to just letting her talk on and on and on. I saw it as being very debate strategic. I don't know if that's a phrase, but I got the impression just watching it, it was a little uncomfortable for me because it came across like he just punched back and kind of put her on the ropes and it put her on the say all of her information out. And as soon as she's for a break, he went in with another question to get more information out of her. So if he was going to discredit her, he was going to get all of that information early enough in the debate to make his point as it went on. Instead, though, I would have liked to see her come back and start asking him questions as opposed to taking it as an opportunity to defend her position. I would have wanted to see far more assertiveness and aggressiveness. Like, no, what do you mean by this? You mentioned this statistic. Where did it come from? What is a data sample? How old is that statistic? Do you have any statistics that are from my perspective? That kind of a thing. So I guess just my perspective was a little different watching it from where I'm at.
Excellent. And Ms. Ekundayo, did I say it correctly?
You did, yes.
Ooh.
You tried, but you did, yes. No, I agree absolutely with Adonica. I mean, I looked at the scoreboard more from the statistical perspective. He had numbers in the beginning, and I loved his strategy in the beginning, and then he lost me in the lightning round at the very end there. He definitely lost himself. You could see that he was at some point completely, like, he unraveled at the very end and he pretty much gave up the debate. He attempted to come back with the closing statement, but that was just a complete mess, to be honest with you, in the closing statement. So, but he tried, so I'll give him points for trying at the very end there. I think at the very end, though, we noticed that he should have been on the other side of the fence at the very end. That's all you could see on his face was that, okay, cool, maybe I should probably be on that other side. So he already gave up before the debate was over.
Wow, interesting.
AJ, you're on mute, but go ahead.
I will say this, that a couple of times in the lightning round, I feel like the Miss Katina was able to get Trey to agree with her on several things, where he actually said, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And remember that this is a fight. This is a verbal fight. And in the fight, especially one like this, like giving an inch is, you might as well give the mile.
But not if what you agree with is helping out your argument.
No,
right?
He agreed with her argument.
Right. And I'm saying part of her argument is his argument. that's the creative destruction of this. Like it's weird. It's a weird like judo flip.
Again,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
But I wanted to talk about a larger issue that I see in this kind of conversation, and it harkens back to Mr. Deskins and our debate. If you say something, anything critical about the African American community, you get an automatic pushback from blacks. All right, where they're like, hey, listen. If you say, black people are fearful of whites, pushback. Black people, escapism, pushback.
No.
Black people are hyper consumerist, pushback. So we have a tendency to not want criticism, either constructive or otherwise.
No people are more self-critical than black people, Mutor.
Work it up.
No, and I'm saying it's an actual issue, because if we can't confront that our SHIT don't stink, it's going to be a lot of problems with us in organizing and doing the things that we need to do in order for us to get to African liberation. So that's all I got to say about that.
I see you shaking your head, Ambrose, but I want to say that we want to move on because these gentlemen are going to start a debate within this debate analysis. So I'm just going to move us on.
No, wait.
and the club.
Give him 20 seconds. Give him 20 seconds.
10 seconds within the context of the debate, please.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to say you lost, bro. You gotta let it go. You like Meek Mill. What I wanted to say though is it's kind of weird.
I only think I lost.
I didn't have that position in this debate. I thought he could make a super simple, super compelling argument about escapism. First, she already threw him a bone by saying it's a part of the process. So she was admitting. And I thought that it's a bit like there are so many simple questions you could say about spirituality and just challenge. Well, if it's so great, why have our conditions not changed? And like maybe she could argue about that, but that was not her angle in the conversation. And so I think he missed opportunities when he, like Adonica said, set her up. He did not respond with something that refuted some parts of her argument in a way that threw her off base. So she was just lecturing the whole conversation.
So what's going to happen is if he would have pushed back in the way you said, Deskins, by saying, "Oh well, why haven't the conditions of Black people improved?" The next logical argument would be something similar to what you said in our other debate. It would be like, "Oh yeah, well we did. We've improved here, and here, and here." And it's kind of just like, oh well, this is progression. Instead of accepting the criticism and kind of like understanding that this is an issue, it's like, no, we've had the civil rights movement and we had this and that, and we're progressing. And so that's why he didn't take that kind of attack.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I disagree.
Because
but
what is the gauge of progress, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just depends on. Oh, sorry, Ebony.
Let's move on to the just in the interest of the time. What were your thoughts on the audience Q&A?
Me? Oh, I thought I'm sorry. How do I pronounce your name? Is it Fumilayo?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm with Fumilayo. Like Trey completely he just fell apart. Like he was like, I agree with you, I disagree with you, and then like the Q&A was the same thing. Like his answers were like disjointed. They didn't necessarily make sense. It just was like a total like. It felt like he agreed with her position and was like, I only took this debate like to go against you because like I just didn't see his Q&A as particularly helpful to any part of his argument. Like I thought that was a downward spiral.
I was gonna say my position's on it a little different is because first, the way that the premise of the debate was set up, spirituality is a form of escapism for many African Americans. When he put those statistics in his opening, he determined what many was. At the point that any conversation around escapism came up, once they got their definitions out there, as soon as both of them consented to each other's opinion, even if it was in part or in little nibbles around what escapism was, he already had proven statistically what many African Americans, based on the data, actually means. So for me, even if he melted down the rest of the conversation, it didn't matter because he already defined what many African Americans was based on the available data, which again, I don't think that she had the same type of data available to her based off of what she was being asked to do in this particular debate. And so, yes, I agree. He didn't have a really strong finish, but he had proven the point early on. And in a debate, you just need to prove your point once. And he stuck to his strategy all the way to the end. And I think it carried through, even if it didn't end well. He proved his point, I think, in the opening and then in that round two, fairly on. And all he had to do was hold on till the end of the debate.
Okay.
I also think, based on when she would describe the gentleman who coined the term escapism, whenever she listed out what he thought of the term, I was like, well, this exactly explains Black people. Like, and she would say, no, this is exactly the opposite. And I'd be like, well, what Black people are you looking at? Like, what are we saying here?
that's reasonable doubt. What I hear you saying that if you say if you guys could be talking about different aspects of the Black community, then I think that actually supports her argument. If you have to ask yourself that question, unless you're saying that she's completely incorrect.
I'm saying she's from my perspective, she's completely incorrect.
So what
if you say many African Americans are use spirituality as a form of escapism, that's a self-evident answer. Yes. Answer is yes.
I disagree.
We're going to have to stop this for debating mutual.
I know, because ultimately I still would need to see where Black people are using their spirituality to not confront issues. And I never saw that clearly delivered.
But in the definition, is not to not confront issues. The definition we have is not
unpleasant situation. What else could that mean?
The diversion can mean temporary. It can mean, like I said, the way he framed it, it could be temporary. It doesn't have to be some kind of prolonged kind of thing. And it's a coping skill. It's a coping skill first. Escapism. Then it's a problem later on.
Let's move to closing statements, and then we'll announce who won. We're getting it's at 26 minutes now.
Okay, so we got 5 minutes left.
Let's move to closing statements and some of you already mentioned how you felt about the closing statements, but any other thoughts about AJ? You made a comment about Trey bringing up a point in the close. Was it you that said about something about him bringing up a point in the closing statement that you thought he should have said earlier?
I forgot the statement that he made. The statement that he talked about. He talked about the tithing. I think that one, or about giving up the money, that one should have been thrown out there in the beginning, and as at least a point for where he can go with this argument. I personally thought that he should have thrown that out there in the beginning, because he threw it out there in the question and answer. But again, that's when the debate is almost over. So that was it. That was me.
My last thoughts on, even with the closing statement, and it goes back to when this debate was being formed, when I saw them going through negotiating their terms, I said I wouldn't take this definition of spirituality because it was not restrictive enough, in my opinion. It encompassed everything. Basically, there's the definition they agreed to of spirituality meant anything outside of your body that you identify as greater. So I agree. So with that said, it hurt Trey, in my opinion, the most, because if you say people want to use their weapons as their spiritual force, I mean, so that's I think for anyone in the future going into a debate, when you go into those term negotiations, it's very important that you're clear and that you get what you want.
That's what I was going to. That was the point that I was just about to make, is that before we set up any of these debates, we actually come together and we set definitions. And one of the main things about the setting of the definitions is that is really where it's going to put you in the debate, as far as where your argument is. Now, Trey has done this before. Yeah. So he knows how this works. He set himself up at a disadvantage. Don't get me wrong. I think that he did very well tonight. Both of them did. But both of them did very well. He put himself in a disadvantage only because, like I said, with those definitions, he seemed to be flirting with this line back and forth, and even to agree with her on some of them, and then not. So I think that the definitions were a little bit too broad. They were arguing a gray area in a black and white debate.
I just think Trey is an honest debater. Like, if you say a point that he agrees with, he's going to be like, "Yeah, I agree with that."
I agree.
But it still doesn't negate my point. Like, and I like that about his debate style. It's interesting.
I mean, it's a fight, bro. I'm not going to give you no.
But he said something in the debate that I thought would, like, in his closing statement, that I thought he could have won the whole debate with, which was like church was about survival. And if he had framed the conversation more around like survival, the escapism was for survival, then that would have just made it a lot harder to argue against that, because so many of his opponent's points would have had to take all of these parts of Black struggle that we might credit. We could say, yeah, but that was escaping in order to make it so that they could survive.
But didn't he kind of say that?
Situation.
So I think
he said it was like in the very end of the conclusion. And
really? Okay.
I wrote it down like, damn it, what's going on, man?
And that's the issue with his argument. He usually he starts really, really strong, but at the very end, he just trails off and we lose him.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm hoping y'all see these scores. We look at debate outcome for Trey. He got a 54. Somebody gave him a 50 and a 60. That's for all rounds combined. We saw, look at that for Katina. She got a 71, a 54, and a 74. So you can see it right there. Our winner for tonight in a split decision, 2-1. The negative position, Katina Taylor takes her first ranked debate victory over Trey.
Right.
So Adonica gave the sympathy win.
Oh, don't say that. She identified with this.
Wow.
It's tough work, man. It's tough work.
Yeah.
No, I didn't feel that way.
Congratulations, Katina.
Hold on,
Congrats,
I want to hear Adonica. Go ahead, Adonica.
No, what I was going to say is that I feel like for me, when I heard the phrasing spirituality, I thought of Orishas. I thought of African spirituality, and I thought I was going to hear a lot more of that. I came into the debate honestly feeling that I was automatically going to not let her win, but I was automatically going to side with her based off of what my personal beliefs and life experiences were coming into it.
Yeah.
But when I didn't hear some of that information around how it reinforces Black identity, around how African spirituality is a form of racial reinforcement for us and how it can be, there were just certain things that perhaps I was hoping to hear. And when I didn't hear them, the only other default position was to go to facts.
Yeah.
And I just didn't get the same factual evidence from her. But again, I don't know that it was as available to her as what he was trying to present in the conversation was available to him. That's all.
For sure.
Everyone on this end applauded everything you just said, Adonica, because we were all really hoping to hear more about the African spirituality.
I was waiting to hear an Orisha something. I was like, I was waiting for it. That's why I signed up, because when I asked Bruce, like, well, when you say spirituality, what do we mean?
What you talking about?
She alluded to it at one point.
I want to hear the terms, though. I was just like, come through with the racial reinforcement, But again, I will say that a lot of that information, please stop, Preston. A lot of that information isn't as widely researched. There's not studies for it. It's just more like information you might have to know through it being passed down in your family, people in your friend circle, whatever. And so again, more of my thinking was looking at the technicalities, the research that could be presented. And again, weighing that against some of my own personal life experiences and expectations coming in. But I think she did an amazing job, and that's somebody that I would sit across from a table with any day of the week and listen to her speak. I was very moved by her conversation and her arguments, and just in terms of the way this was judged from a more technical standpoint on my end, it's not a reflection of what I felt about her argument on a personal level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you saw her opponent fangirling, in the middle of the Q&A. You were like, he was like, yes, girl, yes. And I was like, oh, he already lost.
I'll be ready to battle,
not,
man.
Not to take anything,
until it's over.
I don't want to take anything away from Trey, and I just anybody who's watching, when you get in the debate, you will experience these same things. But do not take Trey lightly, even though he lost tonight. He's formidable.
Do not take.
Don't let him fool you with the. Don't let him fool you with the nice guy antics. He's an assassin in that debate league.
Oh yeah.
Tina was lucky to come away with this victory. She was very well prepared. I don't want to say it was all luck. It was preparation and hard work, I'm sure, on her part. But that was not to be taken lightly that she defeated a great debater like Trey. But Ebony, we got to wrap it up.
All right. We appreciate everybody, especially our judges, for joining us here in the post-debate analysis. Again, congratulations, Katina Taylor, for the win tonight. Thank you so much to Trey Scott for debating, because it takes two people in this platform to even have a debate. So we appreciate everybody for doing this. Thank y'all for rocking with us. This is GDL 18. We're on to 19. Then we in our 20s. So,
Wow, that's what I'm saying.
so
Bam.
so we appreciate it. Keep looking out, watching for us, and sign up to debate. We genuinely invite you to join the league and to give yourself an opportunity to express and use your vocals to speak up and inform arguments for on your own behalf. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you next time.